And we're recording. Okay. So, go ahead and introduce yourself. Who am I talking to today?
Um, I'm Aulora. Uh, that's me.
And how long you been playing the game for?
I started in the beta.
I think you played the longest out of anybody in the FC, if I'm being honest. Uh, you got me beat because I only started in like 2.1 or 2.2 or something like that. Whenever Binding Coils was brand new.
Yeah,
So,
I started in the beta, and the beta was pretty bad. Um, and then I played 1.0,
mhm.
and it was just, I don't know, it had a complexity that just didn't quite make sense.
Yeah, I've heard that from some people that have played the 1.0 version. I've seen it in videos. Thankfully, I didn't have to experience it myself. I
And
sp-
the UI was kind of weird.
yeah, I saw that. I remember when I picked up my copy of Final Fantasy 14 because I originally got it or yeah, I originally got it from like Walmart, like the disc, and it had like the previews on the back, and it still had the old UI on the previews. And I got in
Yeah,
the game, and it
it
was
was
very
weird.
different.
Like
Yeah.
I remember running things like Ifrit,
Hmm.
and it was so weird.
Um, One of the big things that stands out in my mind from the videos I've seen of 1.0 and stuff are um, it's the I think it was the Black Shroud or somewhere around Gridania that was essentially just a giant fucking maze of hallways.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Don't remember that. I'll try to find like an
Uh,
example picture or something of it, but it looks like a nightmare to navigate. Um,
the whole game was kind of a nightmare in 1.0. The biggest issue was you could beat it,
hmm,
right? Like at some point there was just nothing left to do unless you just run stuff for fun.
yeah.
Um, and when it first came out in like the beta, um, it was really bad because like certain skills just wouldn't go off sometimes.
That's not important at all in an MMO. That's fine if your skills don't
No.
work, you know.
Um, yeah, it was really buggy.
So, do you like keep your do you keep like the legacy tattoo on your character, like that little neck tattoo thingy?
I don't.
Hmm.
I think it kind of looks tacky.
That's fair. That's fair. I'm always surprised when I
Plus,
run into
typically,
somebody. Hmm.
yeah. Plus, typically when I'm like glammed up,
You can't see
I
back
have
there.
like I have my neck covered anyway.
Yeah. Yep. I see that. I mean, that's fair. I don't even know if I would use it if I had access to it either, because I'm kind of the same way. Most of my glams would have covered up that part of my back or neck, and I'm not big on tattoos anyway on my character, so it's
Yeah,
sort of
I'm not
whatever.
either, except for like when the like in this warrior glam,
Right.
the tattoo kind of like is part of the chest piece,
Yeah. And it makes
so
sense
it kind of like
because it's a berserker look, like you were talking about
yeah,
before we
yeah, yeah,
started.
and it kind of like flows with the gear because it's part of the gear.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get that. I get that entirely. Um, did you how much did you play back then in 1.0?
Not as much. It was really like I didn't enjoy it. It was super reminiscent of WoW, and I'm not a
Mm,
huge WoW fan.
gotcha.
Um, the best part of that of 1.0 is when they finally got rid of it.
Were you present for any of the like big things that people talk about from 1.0, like the Great Wall of Goobos or whatever, protecting Ul'dah and stuff like that, when they were spawning monsters?
No, I played it for maybe a month or two.
Yeah.
There just wasn't enough content past a couple of months to make the game worth it.
Yeah, I get that. Um, I don't think anybody would blame you for not wanting to play through 1.0 and stick with it through all their patches and stuff. There's not, I feel like there's not many people that were constantly playing it at that point. Um,
Yeah, and like the chat features were like really bad, so it was really hard to make friends.
yeah, yeah, there was a lot with that game that was not great. I'm surprised they were able to turn it around, honestly. And watching that no clip documentary about how all that worked out is really interesting if you've ever seen it.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
Okay. Yeah, it's just a YouTube channel. It's called No Clip, and they did a whole like two-part documentary series on Final Fantasy 14 and the launch and the issues and the rework into Realm Reborn and stuff like that. It's an interesting watch. May remind you some things that you experienced back in the day if you ever look through it. But does that
I'll
mean
have
you
to do
still
that
get
then.
your like sub discount now since you're a 1.0 player?
Yes, I do.
Nice.
Yeah, so my sub's a lot cheaper.
Yeah, at least you got a benefit out of it. I mean, you got something.
Yeah, I mean that's true. Um,
Um,
yeah, I subbed right before.
hmm,
See, I had unsubbed
yeah.
for a while during 1.0, and then I heard that they were doing like a whole new thing with it, so I subbed back right before that happened.
Right before the meteor killed everything and reworked it.
Yeah.
Nice. Did you always? Because you're a warrior main now, in your own words, right?
Yeah, I swap Banes every so often.
Hmm.
It depends kind of like on the content and what I'm doing savage wise and
Yeah. Did you start
um
as a warrior in 1.0?
um
If you remember.
did I?
I
Yeah, I
know it was like
do
12
think
years ago at this point, but
I think I started as a Marauder.
okay. Yeah. Yeah. Um, after it got reworked into Realm Reborn and went away from 1.0 and being kind of shitty, did you find yourself like instantly playing a lot more at that point, or how'd that work out?
Yeah, I played a lot once A Realm Reborn came out. The game just became a lot more fun.
Hmm.
The graphics were like 1,000 times better.
No longer run at like 20 FPS.
Well, I wasn't a huge fan. It was like cartoony.
Yeah,
And that's always been my issue with WoW is that it's got that like cartoony vibe.
I get that. Yeah.
And WoW has an excuse for it, right? It came out in what, like 2003?
Hmm.
Somewhere around there, like early 2000s.
As
I think it
someone
was
that
like
doesn't,
2003 or
yeah, as someone that doesn't play WoW, that sounds right, but I don't know. I'm not exactly like a big WoW historian,
I don't
so
yeah, I don't play WoW either. I know it was like super early 2000s.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
it's been forever.
but WoW is actually the first like I played Eve online when I was a kid.
The spreadsheet simulator.
Yeah. Um and it really just didn't like super interest me.
Yeah.
But when I want to say I was like 11, and I had this buddy who lived next door, and his dad was like hardcore into WoW.
Hmm.
Like I'm talking like I don't know how that marriage worked because that man never left that room if he wasn't at work. And he had this rule that if he went to bed, right, we could play a character on his account, just not one that he played. We had to
Oh.
create our own.
Hmm.
Um, and we got to play it a lot when I would like sleep over his house and stuff. And that WoW is kind of like what got me into MMOs.
Okay.
Um, but as I grew older, I stopped enjoying WoW. Um,
Hmm.
and I moved on to like other things like I don't know if you've ever heard of the game Tales of Pirates.
It rings a bell, but I can't think of what it looks like at the moment.
It was super cartoony. Um, I think it was a Chinese developer too.
Okay.
But I started playing that after I built my first computer. That was I was 13. Um, I My dad has been in IT since the 80s, so
Yeah.
I grew up and there was always components laying around the house.
Right.
And I was able to like go into the garage and take a bunch of the components he would never use again, and I
Hmm.
built a computer out of it.
I mean, that's pretty good because I kind of had the opposite experience as far as computers and experience with technology goes. Is that my family had no experience with computers whatsoever. We got our first one in 1999, and it was a pre-made HP Pavilion from Walmart, and I was so excited because I could finally get online and I could finally play games and stuff. And it has this shitty Intel integrated graphics card that had 8 megabytes of video RAM that was shared with the actual RAM. And I couldn't play shit on that. So, so I was very
Um,
disappointed.
yeah, my dad joined the army in the 80s. He did IT in the army. Um, so I kind of just grew up around that. Like my mom, this is a funny story. When my dad was deployed to Iraq,
Mm,
um, shortly after like 9/11,
mm,
um, she would like Skype message him, and when she did that, right, she'd be on like Yahoo chat rooms with friends or whatever.
right.
Like my mom was that teenager in, in the early 2000s that was definitely doing things she shouldn't have been doing online.
Right.
But she made a ton of friends in like chat rooms and stuff. And like anytime they'd have computer problems, she would run to my dad and ask him all these questions and then go run back to them and then repeat what he said to sound like she knew what she was doing.
I mean, that's one way to do it. So, I mean, that's kind of smart, especially for those days. It's pretty decent. Um, I I remember that I we had like a because our first computer came with like Windows 98 second edition, and we had no idea what the fuck we were doing. So we bought one of those big Windows 98 for Dummies guides that they sold at Walmart. Uh, and so I learned about computers mostly through that. And since I couldn't play any actual like video games on mine, like really anything at all, I mostly and we just had dial up anyway. We didn't have any high speed anything. And so I went online and played like Yahoo Checkers and had like a chat room with Yahoo Checkers and stuff like that. And I remember the days where you had to kind of pick a messenger program that you wanted to use because I had Yahoo Messenger, AOL Instant Messenger, and MSN Messenger, and then I had one program called Trillion that ran all three of them at the same time. So uh, I remember those days. Uh, it was way
I
different than now.
remember I was my dad was stationed in Germany, where my
Mm,
parents are actually from.
mm,
And I remember we got a computer because the army was going to chuck it into the trash.
mm.
And my dad was just like, fuck it, I'll take it home then. Um, and my mom put Hoyle card games. I don't know if you remember that game.
I don't actually.
It was just like a bunch of different card games that you played against computers.
Hmm.
I learned a lot of card games through that. Now I can
I
play very obscure things like cribbage and
right, right. I think the only card game I learned how to play through the computer was Hearts, and it's been so long now that I don't even remember how to play that now. But for our computer and stuff, the only things that would run would be very very basic stuff. So I had like, you remember when they used to sell those single like single case CD games that would be like $10, and it would just be something
yeah,
called like Pool. No,
yeah.
no like company name or anything, just said Pool. That's the kind of shit that I had. I had Pool, I had like Turkey Hunt and stuff like that. That was all I got to do on mine. Um, and so I was, and then on top of that, my dad is the type of person that like he's very mechanically knowledgeable, and he's good about fixing houses and vehicles and everything that's hands on. But he's not good with electronics, and he didn't know that. Like, so he just sort of tried to apply his skills to the computer. And so to try to save space on the hard drive, he's like, I'm going to go through here and I'm going to look at these files, and if they don't seem like they're needed, I'm just going to delete them. And that included system files, which did not have the same protections that they do now. So he'd delete files, and then everything would seem to be okay until you reboot the computer. And then the computer wouldn't boot up. And so through trial and error, I learned a lot about computers, and I was determined to keep learning more about computers so that I keep our computers in running condition. Because every time Dad got a hold of they stopped working. Uh,
Yeah, I ended up falling in love with technology. That's actually what I do for a living now.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm a DoD contractor. I work on um, quantum resistance cryptography.
that doesn't sound complicated at all.
I build networks and programs that should be quantum resistant when quantum computing becomes like an actual threat.
Mm. So you're building things that work in theory, essentially, right now.
Yeah, actually, I have built the very first ever truly quantum, like in theory, it's truly quantum. Um, I Out of theory, it is completely um like, I hate to say the word hacking, 'cause so like teenager kind of talk.
Right.
Um, but after like months and months of penetration testing from some of the best cybersecurity um, people in the world, uh, my network still hasn't been broken into.
I mean, that's pretty good. So you can be proud of that.
Yeah, and when I built that, now I have to do these stupid speaking engagements on quantum cryptography,
You're just suffering from
and
success. That's the problem.
I see the issue is I don't know anything about quantum cryptography other than what I've done.
Right.
Right, like it's a topic that very few people actually know anything about.
Mm.
Like you can know the basics of um like the new, like the ones that the algorithms that NIST has approved as quantum resistance. They're mostly lattice based algorithms.
Mm.
There's actually a it was from like 2022 or 2021. Um, there's this like German speaker who like animated how um how algorithms and stuff like that work.
Hmm.
And it's very like very layman terms, kind of. It's a good. It's on YouTube. It's a. I'll have to find it
I
or
would
some.
probably have to listen to that to have any idea what's going on. So,
Uh, it's a really. It's really good. I
hmm,
think most people should listen to it because like when quantum computing actually becomes a threat,
hmm,
it won't just be like, okay, it's a threat we're gonna have to manage.
right.
The second it becomes a threat, every bit of information that's ever been encrypted with current encryption methods is gone.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest though. As a personal side of things, I feel like I've already been involved in so many data breaches. I doubt there's much that they have left to steal on me at this point. But
Well,
it's a
at this
bigger
point, it
threat
won't be
for
it won't
government.
be personal information though,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like it'll be like they break into bank accounts and just
right.
take all the money,
Ha.
right? It's not like they're stealing your identity. They
Well,
don't have to do that at that point.
maybe they'll
They could just
just
take all your money.
maybe they'll just feel sorry for me and deposit some money into my bank account after they see what's in there.
Um, yeah, things like emails no longer secure. Um, they'll just take every account they want.
Hmm.
Obviously, once it becomes a thing, it'll be stupid expensive. So most everything that
Right.
happens is going to be nation state attacks.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, it's an actual threat if we ever get it truly working.
Something to look forward to, everybody. Yay!
Um, but back on the MMORPG thing.
Hmm.
So after like Tales of Pirates, I started getting into DC Universe Online.
I do know that one. Yeah.
Um, that was in high school. I was dating a girl in high school, and her dad had a very strong addiction to this game. Like it got to the point where he got his son into the game so he could have a healer, and then
Hmm.
he gave me a PS3 so that he would have a tank.
Hey. Free PS3. I'll do that. Sure.
Um,
These fuckers were $600.
yeah, he bought the PS4. Yeah, he bought the PS4 when it came out, and he just gave me his old PS3
Hey.
um, so that he could have a tank.
There you go.
I played that for a couple years throughout high school.
Hmm.
Because even when I stopped dating her, he still like played online with me.
There's a bit of a theme here of you running into people that are addicted to MMORPGs.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of just like I think the biggest thing is I run into people that have like mental issues. Like he was really bad. Like
No,
he had
just call
seen
us
some
all
shit
out,
in
why don't you?
Afghanistan. He had seen some shit in Afghanistan.
Right, yeah.
So he played all of that to like get away from his PTSD and stuff.
Yeah, I get that. I get that.
Um, After that, I built a computer when I joined the army, and I started playing things like EverQuest.
Hmm.
Um, but in 2010, when I was still in high school, I played the beta um, for this game. So that was what, yeah, 2010,
Basically 15 years ago.
right? What wasn't it? 2010 the beta came
It
out.
sounds right.
It sounds right.
It does. I don't want to Google it while I'm recording, but it sounds right.
I'm googling it right now.
Are you? I figured that's what the pause was about.
Um, yes, September 22nd, 2010.
Okay, so we're just under 15 years then, since this is April.
Yeah. I played the beta and I played a little bit of 1.0 and then I stopped playing. Um, and then, like I said, I had started playing again when ARR was about to drop.
Mm-hmm.
And that was in 2013. So that was as I was getting out of like basic training and AIT
Mm-hmm.
For the Army. And like during AIT and stuff, I was playing the game, and then I went to a bunch of training and stuff, and I couldn't play. Um, and I got to my duty station, and my barracks mate that I roomed with, he was really into MMOs too. So we both had computers that we had built.
Yeah.
And we played just about everything. We played EverQuest, we played Guild Wars, we played Final Fantasy. Um, and then Final Fantasy just became the one I stuck with.
Hmm.
I ended up putting so many hours into it. Like my PlayStation alone says that I have 3,000 hours in the game. uh, but that's wrong because it's not including the hours I spend on PS4, like all the hours I spent on
Right.
PS4 and PC.
Right. Um,
Um,
is was it all on this character, like the one you're currently playing?
no,
No.
this character, I have a character on Famfrit
Okay.
that was my original character.
Ah.
Um, and I was playing with a friend at the time on Famfrit, and then he decided he didn't want to be on Primal anymore. So he came to Zalera. Um, and being as I had no attachment to anything on
Mm-hmm.
Primal really at that point because I'd left my FC,
Yeah.
because that one kind of just like died,
Yeah. They do that.
like FCs do.
Yeah. Yeah, they do that fairly often, actually. uh,
So I followed him here to Zalera, and that was, I want to say that was like 2018.
mm,
Um, and that's when this character was created. Originally, this character was Hrothgar.
not really.
It was a Hrothgar named Titus Harper. If you get that reference, that's awesome.
I don't. I hate to disappoint you, but I don't get that one.
It was a group of people who had a podcast of them playing D&D,
Oh, like
and
Critical
one of them
Role?
was a rogue, huh?
Like Critical Role does, except just podcast form.
Yeah, just podcast form.
Hmm.
Actually, was it Critical Role?
I don't know. The name doesn't ring a bell, and I've watched a decent amount of Critical Role.
I don't remember who it was. It was a podcast I found on like Google Podcasts or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, and there was a rogue named Titus Harper. So I made this character and started as ninja. But I made this character and then I immediately level skipped and story skipped straight to Shadowbringers because I was like, I am not putting hours getting back to where I was in Shadowbringers.
That's fair. That is fair in that case. And just some because I got curious since you brought up the D&D thing, because I've only seen a couple of people actually play D&D, a couple of groups. One of which is the Critical Role cast. The other one is just a group of people from an old website called That Guy with the Glasses. And then there's another one that I forget the name of. But apparently the Titus Harper is from a group called Drunks and Dragons. If that
Drunks and
sounds
Dragons, yes.
yeah, if that
Yes,
sounds familiar.
that's what it
Okay.
was. Yeah, they would get drunk and play D&D.
Yeah, I figured that might be what that was about there. Yeah, that's he was. I guess he was one of the main characters because it says he was from like episode 30 to like 280 or something like that. So I guess their campaign went for a
Yeah,
while.
so what ended up happening is the guy who played him
Mm,
um, had been playing since episode 1,
yeah,
but right before episode 30, the DM ended up killing off his
right. Yeah,
character.
as it happens.
Um, but yeah, so I played Ninja, and then eventually I was like, I'm not playing all of these characters I had at 70 all the way to 70 again.
Right.
So I level skipped most of them. Basically all of them except for Gunbreaker and Dancer.
Mm.
Um, so that I could get everything to 80.
So, how long ago was it that you did the transfer to Zolera?
I want to say it was like 2018.
Okay. Okay. And how long has it been since you've been here with us?
That was December 31st, 2001.
2021, you mean?
Yeah, 2000, yeah, 2021.
I played all the way
Honestly,
back in Final Fantasy 11. That's
yeah. Um, yeah, what I did was I found my join request.
Hmm. Do you even remember how you found us?
Yes. Um, I found this FC through um Community Finder.
Oh, we had the community finder page that long. I didn't. Doesn't feel like that long, but I guess it would have been. Damn. It's went through some changes over the years. So yeah, you found us on Community Finder.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the actual like message to make sure because I've been here 3 or 4 years.
Hmm.
I think it's 4
I'm
this
leaning
year.
towards 4. Yeah, it seems like it's about 4. I don't have the best memory, but that's what it feels like to me.
Yes. It was December 31st, 2021.
Okay, right at the turn of the year.
Yeah, and then I know it's from Community Finder because the message in the join request says, "Hey, I saw you in Community Finder
Oh,
that
there you
y'all are
go.
recruiting."
There you go. Honestly, that community finder page has been really good for us ever since they brought it up. Because our old method before that was Rio would just strike up conversations in like main hubs with people and then invite them after talking to them for like 30 minutes or so. Or just doing the stupid thing where you randomly invite people that you like the name of as they pass by you. And like that was it.
I so here's the really fun fact that I don't think anyone here knows.
Mm. Hi, editing Sin here. You don't get to know the fun secret. That's just for me. Sorry. Just know that the conversation eventually turns towards FC's the disband and toxic people, and we'll just pick up from there. Yeah, and that's what happens every time. And I can still remember most of the people that I've had to kick out for being toxic or just like really odd and like making people uncomfortable around them and stuff like that. I don't just mean like socially awkward. I mean like probably needs to be on medication or like get professional help type of odd. That kind of weird.
I can think of one person who may or may not have been speaking in Mortal Kombat speak.
Look, I feel bad, a little bit bad for that one. Just because, like, yeah, she was making people uncomfortable, and I knew I was gonna have to talk to her eventually. But like, she was also just really socially awkward. But she was
She was,
also,
and I feel bad for her as well.
yeah, yeah. I know the one you're talking about because the she had a, for everybody outside the loop here that didn't know her, or is watching this and isn't in the FC or something like that. If you just stumbled across this, we had somebody who her keyboard was broken, and so like was her letter C, and there was like another letter that didn't work on the keyboard,
Yeah,
right?
her letter C was the major one.
Yeah. So every time she wanted to use a C, she used a K, and so she talked in Mortal Kombat speech, or like the speech that the end boss in Final Fantasy VIII with the time compression with a K. Like everything was a K, and on top of that, she was just also really just like depressed, I think, and like really
See, I
negative.
didn't mind her as a person,
No,
right?
no.
My biggest issue was she complained
No, it was just constant
very
complaints.
vocally
Yeah,
about everything. That was all she would put in FC chat would be
yeah.
complaints about the game,
That
right?
was,
And like
yeah, that
they weren't
was.
even like it would be different if they were like valid complaints, but like
Mm.
one of them, and it's still like an inside joke between me and Fruit, um, was the whole Yoshi P hates console
Yeah, I
players.
remember that. Yeah.
And the whole thing, right? And this is what I found it why I found it ridiculous was that came from a complaint where she had picked up a brand new class
Mm.
and her buttons weren't right.
Right.
Like they weren't in the order that she would have liked them.
Yeah, which you can rearrange. Which
That was and then she hit us with Yoshi P hates console players with that, and it just
it is still a joke you say. You two say it all the time, and it's really
we
funny.
do.
But
I will
uh,
say it for the dumbest things. Like I'm not trying to talk bad about her or anything. Like I've helped her in novice chat a few times. Like she's
yeah,
in novice chat.
yeah,
Um, and like I bear no ill will towards her.
yeah. No, I think she was a nice person that was just going through like some issues but she was very negative, and it was to the point that like anybody that was online, because she liked to chat, but she only ever complained about things. She only ever chatted with complaints, and it was like a
Yeah,
constant
and
thing.
like
You couldn't bring up anything.
I would try to like steer conversation to like,
Yeah,
like, hey, how are you, how is this going? Like and everything like that. And it was just it got bad.
yeah, it did. It was to the point like you couldn't talk about anything in FC chat because she'd always want to like take part in conversation, which is fine. Like I wanted her to participate because she seemed like she needed friends, but whenever she participated, it was just to complain. And it was just to say how bad this thing is, how bad that thing is. And it made people not want to be there, and it discouraged people from playing the game and participating and doing anything. And it just, I was not the one that removed her. It was Tammy that removed her because I was still trying to be understanding and think that maybe if she hung out with our people enough that she might turn around and start looking more positive and stuff like that. But she said the wrong thing at the wrong time, and Tammy was on, and I understood, so I didn't reverse it. I was like, you know what, I get it, it's fine. So I sent her a message afterwards. I told her good luck in the future and that I hope she finds somewhere that makes her happy, and that was it. And I think she did for a while. I don't know, I haven't exactly followed up.
Um, but like, so I actually took a break from the FC for a while. Um, that's probably why it doesn't feel like I've been in here so long.
Mhm.
Um, because I know me and you have chats from a game of Werewolf
Yeah.
we played back in like 2022.
Sorry, I had to move my cat. He decided to jump on my desk and try to rub on my microphone in the middle of the interview. But yeah, no, that's what I was thinking too. Is that our first chats, I think, were privately were with the game of Werewolf from like right after you joined, just about. I think.
Yeah, it was like January of
Yeah.
2022.
Yeah, that's one of Saren's events that she ran.
Yeah. Um, and then it wasn't too long after that I took a break from the game.
Mm.
I'm always scared to unsub because I don't want to lose my I don't want to lose my discount.
Right. Yeah, I would
And
be
I'm not
too.
sure if you unsub and then resub, you get it back. So I've just never unsubbed.
Right. Yeah, there's a real fear there, and I don't know the answer either. I've felt the same way before, but it was like, now because I've been running the FC for so long, it's like, well, I can't unsub because like I have to run the place. And then on top of that, before that, it was like, well, I can't unsub because I have a house, and like I don't want to lose the house. So, but I get it, I do.
Um, and then I got back into it because when I joined the FC, Endwalker had just released that month.
Yeah.
Because it released in December of 2022,
Hmm.
which I always thought was a weird time because the rest of the expansions have all released in the summer.
Yeah.
I know at least Shadowbringers and Dawn Trail have released in the summer. Um, but yeah, and then I took a break, and then I started playing again, and I got Fruit into the game, and me and Fruit have just been playing. Um, you know, we do every bit of content together at first, like
Hmm.
when it first comes out. Like we went through Dawn Trail storyline together.
Yeah.
Every time a new update releases, me and her do the story together, and
Actually, that brings up another thing that I usually ask people. And since you've got such a long history of the with the game, all the way from back in the beta, what I'm assuming that the beta and like 1.0 was the worst time for you to play the game, right?
yes, yeah, yeah.
So for you, the first question I'm going to ask is what was the best time for you to play the game? Like which expansion, with the job balance and all these job changes that we've had. At what point in time was your favorite time to play the game, like mechanics wise, as far as doing your job and all that stuff?
I think ARR was
Really?
um that whole you had to level up other classes and stuff like that to get
Mm,
you had to play other jobs to get certain skills.
yes.
Like you had to level up Scholar to get Protect.
Right.
Or was that White
It was
Mage?
White Mage. Yeah, it wasn't Scholar.
Okay, I'm
But
sorry. You had to level up White Mage to get Protect, and it was basically you weren't allowed to heal if you didn't have Protect at the very beginning of every dungeon.
right, yeah. Um, I do remember because I mean, like I said, I started in like either patch 2.1 or 2.2, somewhere around there. And I only did Dragoon, but to even unlock Dragoon, you had to level Marauder to 15. And
Yeah,
I remember having to do that and being like, I don't want to play a tank class. I'm scared. And but you couldn't just keep it as Lancer because nobody wanted to have a Lancer in like the higher level content. The bonus being that you could have more cross class skills if you just had like the base job and not the upgraded job. But it wasn't
yeah.
a good enough trade off. So I liked that system too, with having the cross class skills and being able to kind of customize. Um, I do remember one issue with that time, which I didn't have to run into because I didn't do this content. But you remember when you did level ups and you had to choose your stat increase?
Yes.
And how in like the higher level content, if your accuracy was too low, you would miss in the middle of your combo and have to like reset.
Restart everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not knowing that in advance kind of sucked, but you did have that item that let you reset those choices that you made, so it wasn't a permanent thing. I don't remember how hard that item was to get.
It wasn't. I'm pretty sure you could buy it on the store like you could Fantasia's.
Was it? I thought that you bought it from the Grand Company, but it's been so long that I might be forgetting. Um,
I think you were able to get it in game, but you could
mhm,
also buy it
that makes sense.
online. I think it was. I don't know. It's been forever since I've ever
Yeah.
had to worry about that stupid potion.
That's fair. I remember, you know, the times when those, because back then the tanks didn't have tank stances, they just had enmity generating skills, and
Oh, they
some,
had stances. You had to like bounce between the two.
yeah, but it wasn't just a solid stance you stayed on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had to like in your tank stance. You did less damage, but you
Hmm.
gained more enmity,
Right.
and then you would have to like turn off your tank stance just to like go through your
Hmm.
burst, and then turn it back on later. And
I
I loved that. That was like the greatest mechanic ever, was bouncing your tank stance on and off.
it was fun. I feel it was fun.
It it gave tanks like a rounded, like it tanks now are just like, okay, I'm gonna turn on tank stance, and then
They're brain dead. They are.
yeah, and now all I have to do is attack something once,
Right. And then you have enmity for
and
like ever.
yeah, you'll never steal enmity from me.
Right, as long as you're doing the bare minimum, which I have stolen enmity from tanks, so that is still too hard for some of them, but that's another.
I remember when Shadowbringers first came out and they started that tank stance thing.
Mm,
It did not generate enough enmity all the time for you to just kind of do the bare minimum.
yeah.
Because I remember Machinist, um, and Air Anchor,
Mm,
when they would throw down a boosted Air Anchor, if you didn't have like a good combo going as a tank, it would rip just automatically. That boosted Air Anchor would just rip aggro.
I mean, even with the boosted tank stance early on in Dawn Trail, some of the starting combos with Pictomancer could do a similar thing if you weren't careful. But they did increase the enmity that was generated by the tank stances past that initial phase. I do remember that. The I remember early on in the Realm Reborn, there were several times where playing as a dragoon, I was like the only DPS class that had actual real armor technically, and there were some
Well, it's 'cause-
times where I like ripped aggro from the tank and had to use like Keen Flurry to like parry when they still had that.
well, originally Dragoon was supposed to be a tank.
Yeah. I didn't know that, but it had decent armor, and I had a little bit of survivability back then, and I had some tools to help me survive in those situations, which they obviously they took away after. No, cat, don't get on me. He keeps trying to get on my desk. Um, they took some of those tools away later on because you didn't need them anymore. Um, I do regret the fact that with the level cap now being 100, those really early dungeons where you used to have like several skills to use, you now get like 3 skills that you use in that whole dungeon for like level 20 content
Yeah.
and stuff like that. You know,
Yep.
used to be you'd have like 8 or 9 skills or something by that point because your level cap was 50. And so you got a new skill like every 2 or 3 levels. That
See,
kind of sucks
I'm
now.
curious how they're going to fix, because at some point they're going to have to do what WoW did, because our level cap is getting so large.
Mhm.
They're going to have to squish the level at some point.
Yeah, I don't know what they're gonna do about that. Um, I
Because
also,
what's going to end up happening is, if they don't, the game's just going to be so daunting for new players.
mhm,
Because trying to get to like level 200, you know,
yeah, it will look pretty rough starting on. And on top of that, my other concern, and I even had this concern before Dawn Trail came out, which it hasn't been bad with Dawn Trail, but I'm worried that like what are they gonna do for new skills as we like continue to gain levels because I'm out of space on my hotbars. Like I I can turn my thing back on here, my HUD, and show that like I have 3 rows of hotbars that are all full, on most of my classes. And if they start like lowering the amount of skills that we earn before we get to max level, we're going to have an even bigger problem where now more dungeons feel really boring because you have less skills to hit.
Yeah, and then you're gonna get to the point where like people who are so ingrained in like high level content are getting so used to certain skills that when they drop levels,
Yeah.
it's already happening. You see it a lot with warriors.
Mm,
Um, they like to use raw intuition like they would bloodwetting
yep.
for like tank busters and stuff, forgetting that raw intuition does not give you a shield.
Right. Yeah. It's rough. It's rough to remember all of that, especially if you have multiple classes leveled where you have like the same skill that just gets upgraded later and does different new things with the upgrade on all of these. It's hard to keep that in mind all the time because
Yeah,
you're always going to forget something.
being Omni 100 is rough.
Yes, it is.
Um, you end up, and that's the worst part is like you end up playing like two jobs
Yeah,
when you do like roulettes to sink down. You end up playing like two of them.
yeah, yeah,
It's like Paladin. I don't like Paladin under like 70,
yeah. It's boring.
so I won't play Paladin under in roulettes.
Yeah, I feel the same. Except I would extend that and say that I don't like Paladin under 80. I don't think it even gets decent for me until 80. So like we all have those classes where it's just like I don't want to go through less with this because I don't know what level I'm getting, and I hate this rotation under this level, and chances are I'm gonna get something under this level, and it sucks to do that.
Ninja's really bad too.
Even my favorite class, Samurai, is like that too. Like level 50 Samurai is slow and boring.
Yeah, you're like, how did I ever play this at level 50?
I know how I did it. I can still remember how I did it just because like I wanted a new class and I wanted something new to learn and it was a new challenge. And so it was all new to me at the time, so it wasn't that bad. But going back to it now, it's like holy shit, this is the slowest motherfucking class I've ever seen. Like
I'll tell you one that really hurts
mm,
being synced down
mm,
is Summoner.
yeah. Yeah, if you
After
like
they
casting
did the
ruin.
whole Summoner rework, Summoner was no longer fun to play under
Yeah.
8.
I I've said it before, but I like the new theme of the class where you're actually summoning, icons and stuff. You have actual summons
Yeah,
instead of just
I'm
carbuncles.
I'm not I'm not upset about that at all. Like
No,
it feels like what a summoner should be. What
it
it's always been in Final Fantasy is you summon monsters that you've
yeah,
defeated.
it does. It feels right as far as theming, but old summoner was more fun to play.
Old Summoner was AoE king.
Yes, it was. Being able to spread your poison dot to like every enemy in the group felt so satisfying. I miss that
Yeah,
so much.
Old Summoner was AoE king.
It was. It was great. It was not an easy class on your fingers on keyboard. I'll give them that. Like you were pretty busy during different parts, but it was a lot of fun once you got it down. It was the class that I constantly took into Mentor Roulette when I still had that unlocked. It was just so much fun to play, and it had the res. The even if you
Yeah,
got to like a level 50 extreme trial in Mentor Roulette, I could still res people, so I didn't have to wait till like level 64 when Red Mage unlocks their res.
yeah,
So I didn't have to worry about that. It was super useful in a bunch of different situations. It was nice.
yeah.
But
Because they get the res super early due to Scholar.
yeah, they do. They get it really early. And so it was great. I played it a bunch and it was a lot of fun. But this one is bigger, it's flashier, it's got the right theme, but man, it's boring. It's so boring.
It
it's
is. It's literally the same buttons, just
it is.
in a rotation.
Yep. And they occasionally, like, as you level up to max, they'll occasionally add like one OGCD in there, but it's the same basic rotation the whole way through your leveling process. All you mostly get are upgraded skills. So
Yeah,
not really
I
anything
remember
changes.
when I remember when Stormblood came out and Summon Bahamut
Hmm.
came out and people lost their fucking mind.
That was a big improvement. I will say that that was fun when that came out.
And
Um,
then you also had to like know which one of your eggies
yeah,
was was best. Like
for any
Garuda was only
situation.
good during mob
Yep.
packs. Titan never got
No.
used.
If you had to pull out Titan, something was going wrong. And then
Well, the
if it
most
was
time you
single,
use Titan is when you were in solo content. It made
yeah,
Summoner really easy to play solo content with
yeah, I could see that.
because you had a guaranteed tank.
Yeah, yeah, I could see that. I don't remember ever pulling mine out for any situations. It was mostly just the Garuda one and the Ifrit. That was pretty much it that I used. Um, I do miss the dots though. I miss the all the different
I do
skills you had to
too.
cycle
I miss
through.
the dot.
Um, let's see. And then my other follow up question before I get too far off track here is if that's your favorite time to play through the game jobs wise, what's been your favorite expansion though, as far as like overall experience, like story, dungeons, jobs, everything?
I'm kind of like mixed between two. Like I'm super basic and obviously Shadowbringers
Yeah,
um was great to play all of that on content.
right,
Like spoiler in FC, spoiler warnings went on for like a year
right.
because anything you said about Shadowbringers was a spoiler.
Yes, absolutely.
Like you couldn't talk about the expansion without spoiling something.
We protected that shit like crazy because it was so important and so good.
Right, that's a lot of fun. I I know this is going to be a very controversial opinion.
Hmm.
Um, but the dungeons in Dawn Trail have just been so much fun.
I'll give you that. No, yeah, we even talked about in Lauren's interview, like the dungeon and the trials and the raids in Dawn Trail have been really solid.
Because like in Endwalker, I played a lot of Warrior, and it was kind of just like, oh, whatever. Nothing really hurt me.
Right.
And then other than like that, the Tower of Zot was rough.
It was a little rough, yeah, but I do like that one as a result. So
But that's what I've liked about these dungeons is that as you were leveling up in Dawn Trail, a lot of those dungeons hit hard.
yes, yes they do. Um,
Now that we're all level capped and super over geared for everything, they don't hit as hard. But like
right.
as you were leveling up, like that first dungeon, I died during like the first mob pack. I I was rotating my mitts like I would have an Endwalker,
Hmm.
and it wasn't enough.
Yeah. I will say that going through it as a DPS, even just the actual mechanics that you have to resolve in the boss fights have been 1,000 times more interesting than anything that they threw at me in Endwalker and most of Shadowbringers. Yeah, the main example
The
I can think
only
of is like the very first dungeon, like the final boss in the first dungeon, where he has the tornado that's constantly moving and throwing out like
Yeah.
AoEs and basically like a star pattern. I always have to like visually keep track of that. Yeah, I can't just like resolve it with my eyes closed like I can most Endwalker stuff. I have to actually focus on that to the point where I may like not hit a positional or something because if I take my eyes off of it, it's gonna hit me. Like,
Yeah, the only mechanic in like early expansions that I can remember everyone having trouble with was the last boss of Don Meg.
yeah,
And you know exactly which mechanic I'm
yeah,
talking
I do,
about.
I do. There's actually a few mechanics there that people get messed up. They get hit by the frog a lot, and then when the floor disappears, you have to run on the like
Yeah,
tight walk.
that's the mechanic. When that first came out,
That's a lot of fun.
you had to hope at least one DPS could resolve that
Uh,
mechanic. Otherwise, it was a wipe.
I like to try to sprint across it just to sort of dare other people to do it because I like to watch them fall and I think it's very funny. So
I I'm not gonna lie to you. I did the trust because the trust system had just come out.
yeah,
Um, and I had
they cheat.
completed the dungeon already, but I did the trust, and Alizé just like backflips over,
Yeah, yeah,
and I was
and
like, "Oh, I wonder if I can do that."
nope.
You can indeed not do
Nope,
that.
you cannot. I tried it too early on when I did it with Trust. Eventually, like I think it's Urian J. I think he like teleports to the other side.
Oh yeah, Oriange
Um,
just teleports.
Alice just like goes straight like across it, no problem at all. And then Reen like tightrope walks it too slow and never gets there in time. Like, I liked it for characterization like that. But yeah, in like actual party content, I dash like I sprint across that thing trying to get other people to follow me because I just like to see them fall. I think it's really funny. And if you're a healer, just being able to rescue people off of that is also very funny.
Oh, we tried that too when it was brand new content. We
Uh,
tried we tried getting people who couldn't get all the way across. We're like, "Oh, if you can get to the middle, we'll just rescue you."
yeah, yeah, how'd that work out?
And the first time we thought it was actually a way we could resolve that mechanic. Then we learned that you couldn't do that. And then we used to like do it in like roulettes and stuff when we'd go as a full party.
Right,
I'd get over there as a healer. I'd see someone like halfway done. I'd rescue them.
right. Anything to troll my friends and party members. Anything that lets me troll my party members is a plus in my book. So I love that shit.
I
Um,
get so angry, so
they
angry if
can.
I get rescued in any other content other than when I'm playing as a full party with friends.
I can thankfully say that I don't really get rescued all that often unless it is in a party with FC members and stuff. You know, we used to rescue each other into like the near mechanics, like the rising building from
Yeah,
the floor and all that shit. You know, that stuff's really funny. But
I got
outs
rescued the other day.
did you?
Um, yeah, I got rescued the other day. Um, the healer was like in party chat being like, "Oh, you're gonna get hit," and they rescue me, and they were in the wrong spot,
Oh my god.
and they rescued me into the mechanic,
Yeah,
and I just put in party chat. Like I tried not to be a dick about it, but I was like, if
right.
you're not going to be in the right spot, don't rescue me.
I mean,
And then
I
they were like, they went off on me.
yeah, yeah, that'll happen. I try not to say too much if they rescue me because a lot of the times, like I want to say about like 30% of the time when I get rescued, it's because someone hit the wrong button on accident. And then I figure the other 70% of the time, at least they're trying. Like I've had so many healers that have just done the bare minimum of just like wait and do your heals and don't attack the boss and don't do anything else besides
Oh
just
yeah.
heal. That like if they're trying to do something and they've rescued me and they made a mistake, I'm just like, you know what, fuck it, I don't care. Like at least you tried. You know, you get the participation ribbon. Like that's
I
fine.
think it would have mattered as much if he hadn't been in party chat, just like going off that I was gonna get hit.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that does change it a little bit. Like, if they just insist that they're right and they're right and they're right, and if they were being like a little bit of a dick about it or something, like, that's different. But, like, most of the time, I'm pretty chill about it just because at least they're putting the effort out. I mean, I'm just thankful for that. They've got their eyes open. You know,
See,
that's all.
most of the time when it does it, I just grumble to myself. You know what I mean? Just like,
Yeah.
Right, but I don't say anything in game because, like, most of
Right.
the time they're either trying to help or
Yeah.
it's obviously a troll.
Yeah, it's sometimes it's easy to tell when it's obviously a troll, and then sometimes I'm just like, you know what? I respect it. Like that's okay. We from one to another, I get you. I mean, I'm the guy that in like the Crystal Tower raids, I put out the markers for the wrong lanes for people to see if they're gonna follow them. So like I don't have a lot of room to
I had a
talk.
I had a Crystal Tower run, and this is hilarious. One dude sprinted all the way to his
Uh,
lane and then immediately
of
started the
course.
fight. Right? With he was the only one in any of the lanes.
Yep.
So when we got to doing it, the entire alliance, every alliance was in A. There was no one in B, and it was just him in C. The amount of people going off on that dude was the greatest thing ever.
Uh, See, that's why I like mine because nobody can tell who put down the markers. So they're all like upset and like freaking out like why are these markers wrong? Like who came up with these? Are you dumb? And I'm just like sitting there laughing quietly to myself as people go to the wrong lanes and I watch everything fall apart slowly because I know that we're doomed. And they know we're doomed because we end up with not enough people in one lane. But I think it's really funny. And I'll only do it once and then I'll just let it go, but they never know who did it, and it's the only way I entertain myself in Crystal Tower raids.
And Crystal Tower just got. I think that my biggest issue with Crystal Tower is when it became mandatory.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
I played it so many times,
yeah, and
like back to back to back to back, because we were helping FC members get
mhm,
through it so they could start Shadowbringers.
yeah,
You do a roulette and it was a guaranteed Crystal Tower.
and then on top of
Like at
that,
least now, like it's not a guarantee that it's Crystal Tower. You have a really good chance, but it's
um,
not a guarantee. Like
on top of that, for
I
like
get,
the Bosnia stuff, wasn't one of those steps that you could go to like Crystal Tower and run or something like that, or am I misremembering that? And get
I
some
don't
of those
remember.
memories or something like memories of you dying
I
or
have
something.
only ever right. I've only ever done the first two steps.
Ah, don't blame you.
The the rest of that grind was just
Yeah,
so
annoying. Yeah,
yeah, especially the part where you have to play
in Bosnia.
60 dungeons
Oh,
and leveling roulette.
yeah, yeah. Um, I remember that one of the steps wasn't that bad for me just because one of the options was you could run Palace of the Dead or something like that, and you had like a chance until you got past a certain floor, then it was like 100% chance to get one of the drops. And I was going to do
Yeah.
that anyway, so it just sort of coincided with what I was already planning. That was okay. But my worst part of doing that grind back then was actually being in Bosnia because at the beginning it was okay. Like it was new content and it was interesting, but it got really boring to look at. It's not like Eureka where there's like a lot of varied environments. Everything is brown and gray and destroyed and boring. And
See, I like different aspects of Eureka and Boja,
yeah,
right? Like, I like the critical engagements way more than Fates,
yeah,
right? Because Fates have to be spawned, and then
right.
once they're spawned, they're on a cooldown for like
Yes.
2 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then you're kind of just stuck, and then like the big bosses only spawn like once a week, kind of thing.
It's pretty yeah, it's pretty rare and the fact that they have to have trackers for all that different stuff and then they're all
And then
big events.
even when Eureka was like on content,
Hmm.
um, BA runs were just like still non-existent
Yeah.
unless it was like a scheduled BA run.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas like um, Deliberum popped up like once every 2 hours.
Right. it it
Um,
helps that like Delubrum is a lot more straightforward because you can just queue for it and be in there, and like BA you have to do prep for, and it's all kind of like vague unless you've had like have read a guide or something like that. And then you have to have all these people that have already agreed to be ready for it and be there and do it. I still haven't even done BA because I just haven't ever made time for it to join that Discord and be that part of the one of the sign up groups.
I've done one BA run, and I did it for the mount.
Yeah, that's all I'd want to do
That
it
was the
for
whole
too.
reason I did Eureka was for the mount.
To be honest, I did
Uh,
Eureka for the elemental armor. So
I don't like it. Fruit wears it on our Dark Knight, but
hmm. Well,
I can't.
I initially got it because I thought the whole set, like as a whole, was really impressive, and then once I got it, I wore it for a little bit, and then I got tired of it. But there's still like pieces of it that I use in other glamours that work out pretty nice. So I'm glad that I've got it now. That and now that I've done Eureka, I have access to the Happy Bunny fates, and I can just farm those for money whenever I want to.
Yeah,
So those are handy. My big problem with Bosja compared to Eureka, because I like Eureka's environments a lot, like the fucking tornadoes and shit in the first area, you know, the floating crystals and all this shit, the reverse
yeah.
waterfalls, you know, all that's really cool to look at. But Bosja is like brown and gray and like boring and destroyed, and there's like there's no real incentive for me to go back at any point if I've finished the initial like run through of it. I don't really have any incentive now.
I used it to level Picto and Viper because
Yeah,
when those came out, this expansion, that was like the quickest way to get them.
yeah.
Um,
The you know one of my biggest disappointments with Bosja was one of the things that I was actually kind of looking forward to when it was first announced, which was the duels, like those special one-on-one duel things. I
I
like
love
them.
those duels.
I like them in theory, but what I don't like is that if you go into them without knowledge ahead of time of like what things to bring, that they're not completable most of the time.
Most of them, if you just bring Reflect,
Hmm.
you're good.
It's been a while. I can't remember specifics now, but I remember thinking about the initial one, like the very first one with the like robot, the like flying robot,
Oh yeah,
and
Gabriel. Gabriel, all
Gabriel.
you needed was Reflect.
I thought you had to have something as a DPS class that like reduced the damage you took for part of it.
Yeah, on a DPS class.
Right. That's what I'm talking
Um,
about.
but on like healer and tank, all
Hmm.
you had to have is Reflect.
Okay. Yeah, I might just be thinking from the DPS perspective then, because I went mostly as a DPS in there.
DPS really on that fight, they really wanted one of the um one of the like potions they give you like skirmisher and stuff.
Yeah.
There was one that DPS really wanted for that fight. Um, but for the most part, unless you're trying to speed run the fight, all you really need is Reflect.
Yeah. Um, since we're going, we're actually like almost to like an hour 50. I think we're just at an hour 15 now, so I'll have to wrap this up. But
All right.
what what's some like? Do you have any final words or anything that you want to say, or anything that you want to share about yourself that people should know, or just anything you want to wrap this up with at the end?
Um, I don't know. If anyone needs anything, I have a decent knowledge of the game. Just ask.
Hmm.
Um, if anyone needs gear crafted or anything like that, let me know.
Okay. Okay. Um. Yeah, you've got every class maxed out, including the crafters and gatherers. So I mean, you can, Aulora can do pretty much everything here. Um,
Yeah, I have a decent knowledge. Like if you're having issues with like rotations and
hmm,
openers, um, I know most of them. The only one I struggle with is Monk.
hmm.
Like I get it in theory, but
I don't blame you there. As since I have all this striking gear because I main samurai. You know, monk is the natural like second option for me, right? To try to do if we're in any sort of content. And in theory, it seems easy enough. In practice, I have no idea what the fuck is going on. So so I relate to that very strongly. Um but yeah, so we'll wrap this up here. It was good talking to you. Thanks for doing the interview. I have to work next couple of days, so I don't know when I'm gonna get this uploaded. But when I do, I will tag you.
All right.
Holy shit, is that a shark?